Hello, my name is Nate Schwab, and today I'm talking to you about culture shock and the differences between Eastern and Western cultures. The culture shock that I'm talking about is when an Eastern foreign exchange student who grew up in Japan, China, some of those Eastern cultures, comes over to the United States or Mexico or Canada or one of those Eastern cultures. There's a very the two cultures are starkly different. And today I'm going to talk to you about the behavioral differences between Eastern and Western cultures. I'm going to show you kind of some graphical illustrations of the differences. There's this great infographic series by Yang Liu. And then I'm going to talk about the implications. What does it mean for Western students and Eastern students to interact together, and how best can they do that? So the biggest thing I think that Eastern cultures do is they live in complex social networks. They're very, very collectivist and all about the good of the group, whereas Western cultures live in it's less constraining. It's more independent. My ego is huge and straightforward, and this is what I think, and this is what I'm going to do, regardless of the social structure around me. It's me. I'm concerned about that. It's egocentric. Eastern cultures engage in multiple and oftentimes complex role relations with other individuals. They are what you would say socially interdependent. They're constantly, in social situations looking outward and almost coordinating their actions with other people around them. And they do this in order to minimize social friction. Western cultures are independent, as I've said, they're autonomous, and they're very individualistic. So in order to illustrate that, I found a great infographic series by Yang Liu. You can find this on a website, bsix12.com, so b612.com. You can go there, see the whole thing. It's great. And I'm going to show you a few selections because they really illustrate the differences. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about them because they really speak for themselves. And then we'll talk about the implications. So on the left-hand side, the blue side, represents Western culture, and then on the red side, the right-hand side, represents Eastern culture. So let's take a look here. So first up, we have lifestyle differences. As we've talked about, Eastern or Western cultures are very independent, and Eastern cultures are quite dependent upon others. This was interesting. I didn't know this. The attitude towards punctuality in the United States and Western cultures were pretty exact and on time. I myself need to work on that, but in general, the Western culture is like that. Whereas the Eastern culture has kind of a relaxed sense of time. Show up, a little bit early, a little bit late. We're all going to get there at the same time. I think this is great. At a party, Eastern cultures don't necessarily stand in a giant circle and look at each other like that. But I think this is more representative of the fact that they are much more inclusive, worrying about the collective whole and how they're doing in a social situation. Whereas, at a party here, it's going to be, we're going to break off into smaller groups and engage folks. Sense of ego with Western cultures really almost diminishes the power of the boss and the authority figures, whereas Eastern cultures are so concerned about minimizing social friction. So in order to do that, I think there is this reverence for authority. Problem-solving approach, classic Western approach, just barrel right through the problem. Our ego and our centrism can just take whatever problem and just chuck it out the window, whereas Eastern cultures are just going to go around. They're going to be a little bit more not passive necessarily, but again, that minimizing of social friction, not ruffling any feathers. Size of individual's ego, this speaks for itself. We've already talked about this. Standing in line, it's another individualism versus collectivism. He's in front of me, I'm behind him. Whereas in Eastern cultures, it's more of a, hey, everybody's getting to the same place. Let's just kind of cluster together and get everybody taken care of. Complexity of self-expression. A lot of times what you see is what you get with Westerners. Obviously, Westerners still have complex inner emotions, but comparatively, Eastern self-expression is a little bit more, not exactly sure. Or maybe sure of, but, you take different paths to get there, to self-fulfillment. All right, so I hope that was helpful. Obviously, some of those were incredible generalizations and not going, you don't want to get into stereotype area, but I think it's generally helpful in illustrating the difference between behaviors. So what are the implications of this? I think it's very important for Western students to be very cognizant of how Eastern cultures operate and vice versa. We need to understand the cultural backgrounds and the implications of those backgrounds in how folks act. And once we understand that, then we're on common ground, and that can help ease culture shock. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm Nate Schwab.